A nun and a priest were crossing the Sahara Desert on a camel. On the third day out, the camel suddenly dropped dead without warning. After dusting themselves off, the nun and the priest surveyed their situation. After a long period of silence, the priest spoke. "Well, sister, this looks pretty grim." "I know, father. In fact, I don't think it likely that we can survive more than a day or two." "I agree," says the father. "Sister, since we are unlikely to make it out of here alive, would you do something for me?" "Anything, father. I have never seen a woman's breasts, and I was wondering if I might see yours." "Well, under the circumstances, I don't see that it would do any harm." The nun opened her habit, and the priest enjoyed the sight of her shapely breasts, commenting frequently on their beauty. "Father, could I ask something of you?" "Yes, sister. I have never seen a man's penis. Could I see yours?" "I suppose I would be okay," the priest replied, lifted his robe, and almost immediately he was sporting a huge erection. "Sister, you know that if I insert this in the right place, it can give life." "Is that true, father?" "Yes, it is, sister." "Oh, father, that's wonderful. Stick it in the camel and let's get the f*** out of here." A man is driving to meet a friend at her house, a pretty girl whom he has a crush on. He plans to ask her on a date. He's having second thoughts and is beyond nervous. Suddenly, an 18-wheeler slams into the side of his car, totaling it and nearly killing him. Around the operating table, surgeons debate how they're going to save him. One suggests that his critical condition is a result of his organs being rearranged in the accident. "We have to put them back," he says. So the head surgeon quickly removes the dying man's intestines and stomach and works his way up. "I think I severed one of the intestines," he says to the others. "What?" exclaims another. "The poor man, he was just on his way to ask a woman on a date." "Well," the first surgeon continues, "he has no guts, but his heart's in the right place." A young man met a beautiful girl and agreed to spend the night with her for $500. So they did. Before he left, he told her that he did not have any cash with him, but that he would have his secretary write a check and mail it to her, calling the payment rent for apartment. On the way to his office, he regretted it and decided it wasn't worth the price. So he had his secretary send a check for $250 and enclosed the following note. "Dear Madam, enclosed you will find a check in the amount of $250 for rent of your apartment. I am not sending the amount agreed upon because when I rented the apartment, I was under the impression that it had never been occupied, that there was plenty of heat, that it was small enough to make me cozy and feel at home. Last night, however, I found it had been previously occupied, there was no heat, and it was entirely too large." Upon receipt of the note, the girl immediately returned the check for $250 with the following note. "Dear sir, first of all, I cannot understand how you expect a beautiful apartment to remain unoccupied indefinitely. As for the heat, there is heat if you know how to turn it on. Regarding the space, the apartment is, indeed, of regular size, but if you don't have enough furniture to fill it, please don't blame the landlady. Please be so kind as to send a check for the full amount of $500, or I'll be forced to contact your current landlady." A guy is driving around when he sees a sign in front of a house. "Talking dog for sale." Curious, he rings the bell, and the owner tells him the dog is in the backyard. He walks out and finds a Labrador sitting there. "You talk?" he asks. "Yep," the lab replies. "So, what's your story?" The lab says, "Well, I discovered I could talk when I was young. I wanted to help the government, so I told the CIA. Before I knew it, they had me jetting from country to country, sitting in rooms with spies and world leaders. Nobody suspects the dog. I was one of their top agents for 8 years. But all that travel wore me out. So I took a job at the airport, doing undercover security. Picked up a ton of intel, got some medals, started a family, had a bunch of pups. And now I'm just retired, taking it easy." The guy is stunned. He goes back in and says to the owner, "This dog is incredible. Why are you selling him for just $10? The owner shrugs and says, "Because he's a liar. He didn't do any of that." A man had been dating a woman for a few weeks and finally decided it was time for her to meet his family. On Sunday afternoon, he brought her over for lunch. His father greeted them politely, But after a few minutes, he quietly pulled his son aside. Keeping his voice low, he whispered, "Son, where on earth did you meet her? She keeps squinting at everyone. She's limping, and I don't think she's heard a word I've said all afternoon." The son looked at his dad, shook his head, and smiled. "Dad, what? You really don't have to whisper." His father looked relieved. "Oh, good. She didn't hear me?" The son replied, "No, but she reads lips." A successful businesswoman walked into a downtown bank just before leaving on a 2-week overseas trip. "I'd like to borrow $5,000 for a short time," she said. The loan officer explained that a loan would require collateral. Without hesitation, she handed over the keys and title to her brand-new luxury sedan parked outside the bank. After verifying the paperwork, the bank approved the loan. As soon as she left, several employees couldn't help but smile. Imagine owning a car worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and borrowing only $5,000. One of them joked. The vehicle was carefully parked in the bank's secure underground garage for safekeeping. 2 weeks later, the woman returned exactly as promised. She paid back the loan along with a small amount of interest. Everything was settled within minutes. Curious, the loan officer finally asked, "May I ask you something? We discovered that you're extremely wealthy. You clearly didn't need this loan. Why go through all this?" She smiled. "I wasn't looking for a loan." The officer looked confused. She continued, "I was looking for a safe place to leave my car while I traveled. Show me another secure parking spot in the city that costs less than the loan interest and keeps my car protected for 2 weeks." For a moment, the office was completely silent. Then everyone laughed. Sometimes the smartest investment isn't borrowing money. It's knowing how to solve a problem in an unexpected way. An American and a Japanese were sitting on the plane on the way to LA when the American turned to the Japanese and asked, "What kind of essay are you?" The Japanese, confused, replied, "Sorry, but I don't understand what you mean." The American repeated, "What kind of essay are you?" Again, the Japanese were confused over the question. The American, now irritated, then yelled, "What kind of essay are you? Are you Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, etc.?" The Japanese then replied, "Oh, I am a Japanese." A while later, the Japanese turned to the American and asked, "What kind of key was he?" The American, frustrated, yelled, "What do you mean, what kind of? I?" The Japanese said, "Are you a Yankee, donkey, or a monkey?" Lesson 3. Never insult anyone. Jimmy and Jack were twins, but they weren't identical, far from it. They looked like the before and after photos in those old bodybuilding adverts. Jimmy was a skinny thing, while Jack was well-built and muscular. As a result, Jack seemed to attract women without making an effort everywhere. When he went, they would cluster around him while poor Jimmy struggled, and even when women approached him, usually because he was standing next to Jack, he found it difficult to talk to them. However, the two were the best of friends, and Jack always did his best to help Jimmy out, though it was rarely successful. One day, the two planned to go to the beach. Jack knew that as soon as he stepped onto the sands, wearing his swimming trunks, the women would come flocking, and hopefully Jimmy would benefit from the overflow, so to speak. Unfortunately, as they were about to set off, something cropped up, and Jack found he had some business to take care of first. He said to Jimmy, "You go on ahead. I'll meet you there. But in the meantime, we need to do something to give you an advantage. That skinny body is what's holding you back. We can't give you muscles, but we can make you look a bit more of a stud, get a potato, and pop it down your swimming trunks, and you look a bit more macho." Jimmy set off, and Jack took care of his business, then headed for the beach to find his brother. It didn't take long. Though the beach was crowded, there was a large circular gap at one point, as if people were trying to keep away from some unpleasant object. Right at the center sat Jimmy, looking miserable. He got to his feet as Jack approached. "This is all your fault," he said. "I did what you told me. I got a potato and stuck it down my swimming trunks, but as soon as I came out of the changing rooms, people started screaming and running away. You said it would attract the girls, but nobody will come within 20 yards of me." "I'm not surprised," said Jack. "You were supposed to put the potato down the front of your trunks." During a marriage seminar, the speaker decided to conduct a quick audience experiment. He smiled and said, "Let's see how independent everyone is." The room went quiet. If you usually make the final decisions at home, stay exactly where you are. Only a handful of people remained seated. "Now," he continued, "if your spouse usually has the last word, please stand up." Almost the entire room stood immediately, but one man stayed comfortably in his chair. The speaker grinned. "Well, now that's impressive." He walked over and asked, "Tell us your secret. How do you manage to be the only one who didn't stand up?" The man shrugged and answered, "I don't know. My wife told me to stay seated until the presentation was over." A pastor recently visited the dentist to get fitted for a brand new set of dentures. On his first Sunday back in the pulpit, his sermon lasted a mere 8 minutes. On the second Sunday, he managed to speak for only 10 minutes before wrapping up. But on the third Sunday, the pastor took to the pulpit and preached nonstop for nearly 3 hours. He went on, showing no signs of stopping, until the exhausted congregation finally had to step up and physically help him sit down. Concerned for his health, the church elders rushed to his side. "Pastor, are you all right? What on earth happened today?" The pastor rubbed his aching jaw and sighed. "Well, the first Sunday, my gums were so incredibly sore, I could only manage 8 minutes. The second Sunday, they still hurt, so I stopped at 10. But this morning, I was in a rush, accidentally put my wife's dentures in, and I simply couldn't shut up." A man was walking through a furniture store when an attractive woman approached him with a hopeful smile. "Excuse me," she said, "I'm desperately looking for a nightstand." The man raised an eyebrow, completely misunderstanding her. "Well, I wasn't expecting that," he said with a grin. One thing led to another. They spent the evening chatting over dinner, laughed through a comedy show, took a moonlit walk, and eventually ended up back at his apartment. The next morning, while making coffee, he smiled proudly and asked, "So, was the night everything you hoped for?" She smiled back, "Oh, absolutely." Then she looked around the bedroom and asked, "By the way, do you know where the furniture section is?" He frowned. "The furniture section?" "Yes," she said. "I still need somewhere to put my alarm clock." A farmer had a watermelon patch that was almost ready for harvest, with big, juicy melons covering the ground. However, he noticed that every single night, thieves would sneak in and steal his biggest ones. After staying up for several nights without catching anyone in the act, he decided to play a psychological trick. He made a huge wooden sign, painted a bold warning in bright red letters, and planted it right in the middle of the patch. "Warning: one watermelon in this patch has been injected with deadly poison." The next morning, the farmer eagerly went out to check his field. From a distance, he was overjoyed to see that all the watermelons were still there, completely untouched. However, as he walked closer to pull up the sign, his smile vanished. He saw a messy line written in black charcoal by the thief right underneath his message. "Now there are 2. A man returns home early from work one afternoon to find his wife spread out on the bed, puffing and panting. "What are you doing?" the man inquires. "Air," she stammers back. I think I'm having a heart attack." "Oh," cries the gullible husband. "Quick, I'll call an ambulance." He runs downstairs, picks up the phone, and begins dialing 911 when his son Johnny appears, sobbing his little heart out. "What's the matter, son?" asks the father. "Uncle James is in the closet with no clothes on, Daddy," replies his tearful toddler. Enraged, the man runs back upstairs, flings open the wardrobe, and finds his brother there absolutely naked, just as his son had said. "You bastard, Jim," screams the man. "My wife is over there having a heart attack, and you're running around naked scaring Johnny." A mounted police officer spotted a little girl riding her brand new bicycle down the sidewalk. He trotted his horse over and pulled her aside. "That's a beautiful bicycle, young lady," the officer said, looking down from his saddle. "Did Santa Claus bring you that?" "Yes, sir, he did," the girl replied proudly. The officer pulled out his ticket book. "Well, next year, tell Santa to put a safety reflector on the back of it." He scribbled a note and handed it to her. That'll be a $5 fine for a safety violation. The little girl took the ticket, looked up at the arrogant officer, and then stared at his massive steed. That's a really nice horse you've got there, mister, she said. Did Santa bring you that, too? The officer chuckled. He sure did, kiddo. The girl nodded slowly and said, well, next year you tell Santa that the dick is supposed to go underneath the horse, not on top of it. Kids get back into the classroom after playing at recess, and the teacher says, who can tell me what they did at recess? Sally raises her hand and says, I played in the sandbox. That sounds like fun, Sally. If you can correctly spell sand, I will give you a cookie, replied the teacher. Sand, S-E-N-D, sand, said Sally with a smile. Correct, great job. Sally, come get your cookie, said the teacher. Now, Robert, what did you do at recess? Robert says, I play in the sandbox with Sally. That's neat, Robert. If you can correctly spell box, I will give you a cookie. Box, B-U-X, box, spelled Robert with confidence. Perfect, Robert. Now, come receive your prize, said the teacher. Now what about you, Jaquan? What did you do at recess today? Jaquan is crying a little bit and says, I tried to play in the sandbox with Sally and Robert, but they threw rocks at me and called me names. My God, exclaimed the teacher. That sounds like blatant racial discrimination to me. I'll tell you what, Jaquan, if you can correctly spell blatant racial discrimination, I'll give you a cookie. A young couple had just gotten married, and they spent their wedding night doing what most newlyweds do, celebrating their love again and again, all night long. The next morning, the husband hopped in the shower while his new bride relaxed in bed. When he finished, he realized he had forgotten to grab a towel. Sweetheart, he called out, can you bring me a towel, please? She walked over to the bathroom with the towel in hand. When he opened the door to take it, there he stood, dripping wet and completely exposed. Her eyes widened as she glanced down, then back up, then back down, and stopped halfway. With a puzzled look, she pointed and asked, Wait, what's that? He hesitated, slightly embarrassed, and replied, That's what we had so much fun with last night. She paused, looked even more confused, and asked innocently, Oh, is that all that's left? One day at the garage, the new hire heard that the old master mechanic knew every acronym for every make and model. So he decided to put him to the test. Do you really know what every car brand name stands for? Yup. Ford. That's easy. It's fix or repair daily. Kia. Kills and accidents. Fiat. Fix it again, Tony. Okay, smart guy. I've heard all those before. How about Ferrari? The old man paused and said with a grin. Sugar. Honey, iced tea. How do you know it means that? The youngster asked. It's what every Ferrari owner says when handed the repair bill, the old man answered. Fish goes to the doctor. The doctor says, Hello, sir. What brings you in today? The fish replies, Everything. I hurt my back at work, I have a cold, my eyesight is going, and I have high blood pressure. The doctor raises his eyebrows, jots down some notes on his clipboard, and says, Okay, Mr. Salmon, what's your lifestyle like? Do you eat healthily, get enough sleep, and all that? Oh, yes, replies the fish. I eat organic, sleep at least 7 hours a night, and I never drink or smoke. At that, the doctor smiles and slaps his knee. Well, that's your problem. He exclaims, Let me write you a prescription for some Marlboros. The fish is dumbfounded. Doctor, why? The doctor finishes writing the prescription, rips it off his pad, and hands it to the fish. You need to start smoking, he says, because smoking cures salmon. A guy was walking down the street when he gasped to see his grandpa sitting in a rocking chair on the front porch, completely naked from the waist up. Grandpa, what on earth are you doing? The grandson yelled. Grandpa just stared blankly into the distance. Grandpa, seriously, why are you sitting out here with no pants on? He asked again, deeply embarrassed. Grandpa slowly turned his head, sighed, and said, Well, last week I sat out here with no shirt on, and I got a stiff neck. This was your grandma's idea. Old Walter had been riding motorcycles for 45 years. Around the biker club, he was famous for 3 things: his loud Harley, his giant beard, and complaining about absolutely everything. One Saturday, the club president announced, "Tonight's meeting is all about new ideas to improve the club." Walter rolled his eyes. The only thing that needs improving is the price of coffee. That evening, the president suggested, "We should organize more group rides." Everyone applauded. Walter raised his hand. "No." "Why?" "Because every ride has one guy who's too slow, one who's too fast, and one who stops every 10 minutes. Mike laughed. "Walter, that's you." I stopped to admire the scenery. "You mean your mirrors?" Next, the president suggested creating a club social media page. Walter nearly choked on his coffee. "No thanks. The internet is full of strangers." Mike grinned. "You have 800 Facebook friends." Walter nodded. "And I don't trust a single one." Finally, the president asked, "Walter, do you have any ideas?" Walter stood up. "Yes. Nobody is allowed to call my motorcycle old." "Walter," Mike said, "your bike is 30 years old." Walter smiled. "It's not old, it's experienced." Mike laughed. "And you're 75. Walter put on his sunglasses. "Same here. I'm a classic model." Everyone burst into laughter. Walter fired up his Harley and proudly rode away, only to return 2 minutes later. Mike asked, "Forget something?" Walter sighed. "My wife." The clubhouse exploded with laughter. Walter shrugged. "After 45 years of riding, she's still the only passenger who can make me slow down." A man is convinced his wife is going deaf, but she won't admit it. So he decides to test his theory once and for all. While she's standing at the sink, he stands about 6 steps behind her and says, "What's for dinner, dear?" When there's no answer, he steps a few steps closer and repeats the question. Again, there's no response, so he moves right to his wife's shoulder and asks, "What's for dinner, dear?" At this, his wife turns around angrily and says, "For the 3rd time, sausages."